The soldier suddenly realized what was flying toward him wasn't a missile. With a flash of bright light, the man found himself in a strange sealed room. The walls around him were airtight. He looked around in disbelief, not knowing what had just happened. He was just on the battlefield. How could he suddenly be here? But the sharp pain from his wound told him this wasn't a dream. He instinctively pulled out his gun. He thought he might have been captured, then quickly used his phone to call for backup, but suddenly noticed some strange writing on the wall. It said death. His gut told him someone was clearly messing with him, but before he could figure it out, the room suddenly started getting hot. The man began to panic.
What is this?
Even after stripping off all his clothes, it didn't help at all, and the temperature in the room kept rising. He couldn't take it anymore, and started banging on the walls. But the only response was the rising heat, and the sound of his sweat evaporating off the floor. It was clear the room had become an oven, trying to roast him alive. In his rage, the man pulled out his gun, trying to shoot a hole for some air, but to his surprise the wall was harder than steel. The bullets only left minor scratches. In the end, amidst his painful screams, the man slowly passed out. When he woke up again, the temperature had returned to normal, but after the burning just now, his body was nearly dehydrated. Just as he tried to rehydrate, a loud bang came from the floor. Then his backpack and gun started to fall. The next second his whole body was lifted up and hurled straight down. Turns out the whole room was spinning. He was tossed around like a rubber ball, then slammed hard against the wall. No one knows how long this lasted before it finally stopped. Luckily, the man was well trained and physically strong. He took all that without dying, but then he noticed something strange. The writing that was on the wall had now moved to the floor, and his backpack and radio were bizarrely stuck to the ceiling. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Clearly this wasn't an enemy prison camp. After calming down, he quickly picked up the radio to call HQ, but all he got was static noise. The man was about to go insane, but then he had an idea. Maybe the walls were blocking the signal. That's why he couldn't reach HQ. Now he had to rely on the radio, but the radio was stuck on the ceiling. He decided to leave a voice message and say his phone number, so whoever heard it could contact him. But the problem was, he couldn't remember his number. Luckily, the number was written on the radio. He quickly grabbed the binoculars, then wrote the number on the floor. Make sure to remember this detail. It'll be important later. But just as he finished writing, the radio suddenly rang. The man was thrilled. He didn't expect a call so soon, even though there was hope. He couldn't reach it. He quickly took off his shoe, planning to knock the radio down, but his shoe got stuck too. Now he was completely losing it. His chance at rescue was right there, but he couldn't grab it. Before he could come up with a plan, the room began to change again. This time it was freezing cold. Frost started to spread across the walls. The temperature dropped instantly. He ran to put his clothes back on, but it didn't help at all. Then he wrapped himself in anything he could find, but still felt the bone-chilling cold. Soon he couldn't take it and collapsed. His face was covered in thick frost. No one knew how much time had passed before the freezing began to fade. Luckily, he wasn't fatally injured. But right then, the radio rang again. Just as he was about to get up, the room started making noises, and the walls began to rotate again. He tried to grab the radio during the spin, but couldn't control his body. Still with determination, he eventually caught the radio, and the walls finally stopped spinning. But he was too late. The call had ended. He quickly checked the call log and called back. Soon a woman's voice answered. After talking for a bit, he learned she had the same experience. She was also trapped in a sealed room.
Listen, I've been taken, kidnapped. I'm in some fucking room. It keeps changing temperature and turning and spinning like a
Washing machine.
Yes, exactly. It's weird.
She said she was a war correspondent, got into a crash during an assignment, and woke up inside this strange room. Even weirder, there were no light sources, but the room was lit like daytime. The lights felt alive and adjusted automatically. Then the man suddenly realized, how did she know his number? She said it was written on her ceiling. That shocked him. How could the number he wrote on the floor appear in her room? Then he asked if she could see any writing on her walls.
Yeah, God, I see. Chinese and religion.
Victimano, 1218.
That line made him laugh. 1218 was hundreds of years ago. Could someone really have been trapped here back then? He thought it must be a military experiment. Maybe others were trapped in nearby rooms. So he ran over and shouted at the wall. But only the woman's voice replied through the radio. Before he could figure it out, a mysterious force came at him, grabbing his neck and pulling his arms. Then he floated up in midair, completely paralyzed. Once the force let go, he called the woman. She had the same experience. Then he checked the time and warned her. It wasn't over yet. Right after that, the walls started shaking violently, but this time they didn't spin. The whole room began to shrink. The man braced against the wall trying to stop it, but it was useless. He was about to be crushed. Then the walls suddenly stopped. He narrowly escaped death, but was clearly terrified.
Stop! Stop it! Stop! Stop it! No!
He sat in the corner gasping for air. The woman on the other end was much calmer. She called to comfort him. He gradually calmed down. Then they resumed exchanging information. He still didn't understand how she saw the number he wrote, so he asked if she saw a date in what looked like Spanish.
Yeah. It's 2007?
The man said it had to be the enemy's trick. Maybe he'd traveled into the future. After that, the woman asked what year it was for him.
It's 1991.
She burst into laughter. The man was confused, but before she could explain, the room changed again. He quickly asked for the time, because his watch was broken. He wrote it down on his arm. It seemed like some kind of ultrasonic attack. The loud piercing noise made him black out again. When he woke up, the room had shrunk again. Now he had less than 5 square meters of space. He felt dizzy and couldn't breathe. The woman calmed him down again. They were both in the same situation. She said they were likely in the same space, but different points in time. To test this, he asked her to draw something on the wall. She did, and immediately said it was a cross. The man was confused how she knew, but before he could ask, a hand appeared out of nowhere on the wall, clearly the one she had drawn.
There you asked me what year it is.
Yeah.
What time are you in?
2020.
When?
2020.
That's not possible.
That's the truth.
30 years.
She went on to say, there might be hundreds or thousands trapped here, from different places, even different timelines. That's why there were so many languages on the walls. The man couldn't believe it. This wasn't some sci-fi movie, but his stomach wound was very real, still throbbing with pain. Then the phone rang. He thought it was HQ, told the woman and picked it up. But it wasn't HQ. It was a man named Roger. He was also trapped. Roger told him, if you want to survive, you have to solve the equation. The man was confused. What equation? But before he could ask, Roger hung up. Then the woman called again. The man was still in shock, so he responded half-heartedly. Once he came back to his senses, he asked if she'd seen an equation. That made her suspicious. She wondered if he was hiding something. After her pressing, the man told her about his call with Roger, but she hadn't seen any equation. Right then, the man began to feel dizzy from blood loss, then collapsed. In his haze, he saw strange symbols on the floor. They looked familiar, and woke him up. They were enemy code, in Arabic script. He quickly translated it using the cipher, and wrote down what it said. It was an equation, but as soon as he finished, someone erased it. They both thought it was the other, but it wasn't. So he wrote it again on his arm, then told it to the woman. But before they could solve it, the room made strange noises again. This time it came 30 minutes earlier. The man realized time wasn't just passing, it was accelerating. Then the ground started shaking violently, and gravity crushed him down. He tried to fight it, but couldn't. The pressure got stronger and stronger. His clothes tore open. His helmet caved in. Even the bullet in his body was forced out. He couldn't hold on, and was pinned to the floor. Just as he thought he'd be flattened, the gravity stopped. He was seriously injured, but before he could catch his breath, the room began changing again. This time it was spinning and shrinking. It finally stopped after a long time. Now his space was barely the size of a bathroom stall. As he was losing hope, Roger called again, and asked if he'd solved the equation.
Sacrifice, okay?
I've had enough of your cryptic bullshit.
They cannot see.
Who's they, huh? Who is they?
They cannot know. They
No.
cannot know.
What?
Potential.
The man thought he was completely nuts, and hung up. But then, when he talked to the woman, she started talking like Roger too, all paranoid and cryptic. She said they had to act non-threatening, so they would be at ease. They were testing their minds and abilities, gathering people from different times and places, and letting them communicate through writing, to study them. Apparently Roger had convinced her. The man disagreed. Humans should fight back, solve the equation and escape, prove their strength. His words inspired her again.
Yeah, and wouldn't you know it, a fourth-dimensional equation is sketched on the wall. But they gave us the power to control the room. A room that moves in a binary way. An X or a Y. Now we know that pi is constant in this equation. So what if whatever the answer to the equation is...
That's how many times we've rolled the room.
Yes! Like a combination lock. So if the number is 5, we roll the room 5 times, right? All we gotta do is reset the room to 0.
But they both knew, only one could escape, the first to solve it. Before they could continue, the lights went out, and the room started shrinking again. When the man woke up, the room was less than 1 square meter. If it shrunk more, he'd be crushed. They both fell into despair. This time he consoled her. She seemed more unstable. Then Roger called again.
You try to solve it. Cannot succeed. Okay?
Okay.
Not show we're a threat. Has to fail.
He said only by failing could humanity survive. If apes learned to use weapons, or robots rebelled, wouldn't humans destroy them? The man tried to ask who they were, but Roger hung up. Then the room spun and shrank again. He felt like he was about to be crushed. There was barely enough room to breathe. He couldn't move at all. Then finally, the woman solved the equation. Answer 1. That gave him an idea. Maybe if all rooms became 1, they could escape. He told her, when the room changed, they should push the walls together. And it worked. They were in a kind of 4th dimensional space, with many others trapped. From different times and places, the two of them greeted each other, staring at this familiar stranger who shared their fate, then waved goodbye. They both knew this might be the last time, since they were from different timelines. Then a flash of white light. The man returned to the rock he started on.
I did it.
But the war hadn't ended. Strangely, everyone was staring off into the distance. He looked that way too, and the movie ended there.